as the wheels turn beneath you, chasing future to your past, doubling your vision, falling tears on broken glass. I look out of the window.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Jenni Makes Podcast. My name's Jenny and I'm a maker and a midwife living in the northeast of the UK. And this is my little podcast where I talk primarily about knitting, but occasionally a few other fibre related crafts sneak in along the way. So thank you very much for tuning in today. If you're new here, then welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, then welcome back. For anyone who's new, I'm gonna kick this episode off by saying that I have 2 cats who I call my co-hosts, though sometimes they cause more chaos than help. Not sure if they're gonna make an appearance today. Phoebe is just out of shot, sleeping on a little cushion, like the little queen that she is, and Moose is through in the other room, also on a cushion. It's pretty warm here in my part of the UK today, so they're very snoozy. Often what they like to do is kind of climb all over my filming setup, or climb all over me. Often even just me starting to talk wakes them up and they start running around, so it seems to be calm at the moment, so hopefully it stays that way. So I'm feeling a little bit distracted and stumbling over my words today, so I apologise if there's lots of ums or some pauses. It's taken me truly about 10 attempts to start recording this episode, which is funny because actually I think this is the shortest gap between episodes that I've maybe ever done. I think it's only been 2 weeks since I last recorded. I had a few days off in a row, so I was keen to try and make the most of that, and I've actually made some good progress on some of the projects that I talked about. I've got a finished object, I've made progress on one of my main whips, and I've also started a sewing project, which is very, very outside of my comfort zone, but I'll get onto that. So I'm gonna kick off with my first finished object, which I showed in my last episode. And I think it was nearly done, but now it is completely done. So this is my crochet scrappy log cabin baby blanket, which I've made as a gift for a friend who is having a baby next month. So I did talk about this quite a lot in my last episode, so I'll just kind of do a bit of a whistle-stop tour about the construction, but basically I started in the middle with this square. It's using linen stitch crochet, which I, for various reasons, use American terminology, which I know is a bit counterintuitive because I am English, but yeah, I use American. It's just how I was taught. So in American it's single crochet, and then I think in English it's double crochet, but it's one single crochet stitch, chain one, and then repeat, so you kind of get this really nice, like almost offset texture, kind of like, I guess I think of it as like the crochet version of moss stitch, but yeah, it's called the linen stitch. And yeah, I started in the centre, and then it would have been this rectangle, so I kind of worked along this side edge, worked up, and then rotated it around and like worked a line along that like side edge, and then yeah, in like the log cabin fashion. And here it is. I meant to weigh it actually before I started recording. I totally forgot, because I am intrigued to know how much sort of superwash 4-ply I've got out of my stash. I feel really quite smug about it actually, in case you couldn't tell, because a lot of these yarns are either sort of leftovers from socks I've made in the past, or just me having a bit of a clear out, knowing that some of these yarns, while they're beautiful, are not really yarns that I gravitate towards anymore, and it was sort of a case of either giving it away or making something to give away. And I figured a baby blanket being made out of superwash yarn probably is quite a practical gift to give. I haven't washed it yet. I say yet. I don't 100% know if I'm going to, because usually I would like wash and block everything. And I guess I probably should, because then I know maybe if I need to give any advice to the recipient when they come to wash it. I'm just a bit scared to wash it. Like, it's really big. I'm worried it'll take ages to dry even if I spin it. But I probably should. Because also the cats have enjoyed sitting on it while it's been folded up in its completed state, and I want it to be nice and fresh and clean for when it goes to my friends. So yeah, I probably should wash it. So that's the last thing I've to do, I suppose. But I've woven in all my ends. There weren't actually as many as I thought there were going to be. Oh, and I did like just a basic edging around the circumference. I tried a few different edgings out actually. I was thinking about doing like what's it called? Not chevron, not picot. Ooh. Scalloped. I was going to do a scalloped edging, and I tried out a few techniques and I didn't really like it. Also, when I initially started the blanket, I didn't know whether my friend was having a girl or a boy, and she's having a boy, and I'm definitely not one for thinking that boys need to wear blue, girls need to wear pink, etc. And I don't think my friend is either. However, there is quite a lot of pink in this, and I think for the sake of keeping it kind of non-fussy and gender neutral, I didn't really want to add a scalloped edge. It was also just proving to be a bit of a faff, and I didn't really like how it looked. So yeah, I just stuck to still the linen stitch and did three rounds in the end, and I think it looks, yeah, nice and clean. So that's finished, and I feel really good to get that done. And I need to get it sent. I need to get it washed and sent, because yeah, this baby is due, I think, middle of next month, so it'd be lovely if I can get it sent to my friend and then she has it all ready for the little one arriving. So yeah, not really loads to say about that. It was just a bit of a stash busting project. I really enjoyed the process of making another blanket. This one behind me was one that I finished, I think, last year, again using scraps. And I found that, so I love having crochet blankets, but I'm quite bad at anything that involves patches or like individual granny squares. Like I'll be really enthusiastic, I'll make like 15 and then I'll stop and it'll go in a bag for years / never come out again. So I think I've certainly got I've got two granny square, not blankets, but I have two sets of granny squares, which like I've totally ground to a halt with. I started knitting a sort of quilt square inspired blanket. Again, I think that was last year, and I think I made 5 patches and I've stopped. I also started a log cabin blanket, but again, like patches rather than not like this where it's just one big continuous one. It was patches, and I think I've made 2. Oh, so it's really tricky because I think visually I love the look of patchwork blankets. I think they're so beautiful, but I've only ever actually managed to complete one, and I think that was largely due to it being the pandemic, and so I had a lot of time on my hands, wasn't going out and like buying new yarns, so I was trying to use up what I had, and I managed to finish. It's, yeah, definitely covers a single bed and looks quite nice, like kind of over the end of a double bed, so it's quite big. But that's the only time I've ever managed to finish a patchwork blanket, really. So, I mean, I would love to hear if anyone has any recommendations for other blankets, which maybe are like a continuous like construction, if that makes sense. So this one was really great, just working from the inside out. And I guess this one was great as well, because you just work back and forth. I'm wondering if there are other types where you kind of join as you go. I know that you can do kind of like mitered squares, I think it is. I can't remember the name of the pattern, but I think it's I want to call it the Cozy Memories blanket, but I don't know if that is what I'm thinking of, but where you can kind of knit a square like at a time, but it's all connected. I wonder if that would kind of scratch the itch of something that looked like patchwork, but actually is done in one piece. So yeah, give me recommendations if you have any good ones, or any advice to actually keep the momentum going and not like, yeah, losing the enthusiasm 15 squares in. So yeah, that's my first finished object, my first and only actually. I've not finished anything else. Next on to this jumper project, which is another kind of long-term project that I've had on the needles for quite a while. So a few thoughts, a few thoughts about this. It looks like it's going to rain, just side note, and I'm currently sat in the conservatory. So if you can start hearing some tapping noises, that's what that is. If it gets really bad, then I might move, but we'll see. I'm going to continue on for now. So this is the Moby Sweater by Petite Knit, and I've used a Cascade 220, the non-superwash version. And this is a jumper for my partner. It was meant to be for his birthday, but that was over a month and a half ago now, so a little bit late. However, I've made good progress. So I think when I last recorded, I was still on the body and this hadn't come out of its project bag for about a month. So I think I was maybe about here. So I finished the texture part, done the ribbing, and then I've done a whole sleeve as well. This sleeve actually came together really quickly. So, I can't remember if I talked about this last time, so apologies for anyone tuning again and if I'm repeating myself. But I had some initial issues with gauge. I know I did go into this, so I'm not going to go into it again, but yeah, I just felt like the pattern wasn't particularly clear, or could have definitely offered a bit more kind of guidance in terms of the gauge, because as you can see, there's like multiple stitch patterns across the body, and obviously it's not going to be one gauge for all of them in terms of a stitch gauge. Anyway, I said I'm not going to go into it, so I'm not. So when I swatched, I did a really like a large swatch because I wanted it to be as accurate as possible. And I know from the swatch that it shortened quite dramatically and grew widthways quite significantly. So even though I know this, I'm still a little bit stressed, because when I put this on, it is literally a dress. It's like a cheap dress. It's like a long tunic, and that is not what we're wanting. I mean, I know that this isn't for me, but when my boyfriend puts it on, it's a similar situation. Like, it looks very long and it's quite figure hugging, which isn't the vibe you're going for. And equally, I tried it on him once I've finished the sleeve, and the sleeve is like over the end of his hand. But I think on this one I just need to trust my gauge. My measured, like my washed and blocked gauge, not what the gauge is currently looking like, because I know it will grow, and I know that when it grows outwards, then the row gauge will shrink upwards. I just have to trust that that will happen. I was really tempted to kind of give it a preliminary wash and block now that I finished the sleeve. However, I've decided not to do that for two reasons. Firstly, it's kind of annoying to wash and block like such a big jumper to then have to do it again like a week or 2 weeks after when I finish the second sleeve. That feels a bit annoying to do. Also, and I don't know if this is even really a good mindset to have, but if I do wash and block it and find that it's like my gauge for whatever reason is totally off and it is too tight, I'm probably going to put this in a project bag and never pick it up again, which would be silly to do. Well, it'd be silly to do full stop, but I think I would prefer to have that realisation with a completed sweater rather than one that still needs a sleeve, because I think I would be so disheartened that I wouldn't then knit the second sleeve. Because worst come to worst, I'm not worried about it being too long, because obviously that's something I can fix and unravel. But if this is too narrow for my boyfriend, I am not unraveling this and knitting it again. I will shorten it and either keep it for myself, which feels really mean, or give it away to someone else so it does fit. Because this was, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. So yeah, my plan is to pick up for the second sleeve, knit that sleeve and then pray to the gauge gods that it all works out. Fingers crossed. Because, and this is typical as well, I've knitted quite a few jumpers for my boyfriend. I think this will be the 4th one, and of course this is the one that he's most enthusiastic about. I think maybe the other ones I were kept a secret and then I gave them kind of quite close to his birthday or Christmas, so I guess it wasn't like he got to see me working on it, but he's been like asking for updates, he's like getting excited when he sees me knitting on it, he's really happy with the colour, the texture, and I'm like, oh no. Yeah, so I really, 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 really hope that it fits. But yeah, I've really enjoyed working on the sleeve. I think because it's a bit less to concentrate on, because unlike with the body where you've got lots of different textures, or rather you've got like the lattice, which I didn't really enjoy working and I kept on making mistakes. This is just the double moss stitch with the cable running up, kind of right from the centre shoulder and down. I think it looks really nice. And actually when I've been trying it on, even though it does look like a tube dress, I think it looks really nice and I'm a little bit jealous. So I'm hoping the next time I record, it will be finished and it will fit. But we'll see, the jury's out on that one. So yeah, that's the Moby Sweater. I am kind of tempted to make one for me, but let's see, this might end up being mine anyway if it doesn't fit my boyfriend. But yeah, it's not going to happen. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. So that's been the baby blanket and that jumper have been taking up most of my time. I will briefly show, I think I showed this just cast on last time. I almost always have a sock on the go. The socks I showed in my last episode, I said I was keeping for myself. However, they're actually a little bit too big for me. So my boyfriend now has those, lucky thing, because I sort of felt at the time, I don't know, I kind of like alternating where I get a pair and he gets a pair. So I was like, okay, I've got these ones, so I cast him on a pair, but now he's going to double up because he's got what should have been my socks, and then I've also started these ones for him. So yeah, I think I had them already started in the last episode, but I've made a bit more progress. So I've done the leg and I've just started working back and forth on the heel. I was working on these out of the house and kind of had a bit of a mind blank as to how many rounds I usually do on the leg, so I might actually end up like ripping that bit of the heel flat back and knitting a few more rows, because when I hold it up now I'm like, is this more than I usually do it? But this is just like an improvised 3x1 broken rib sock, and I'll do a heel flap and gusset. The yarn is by Regia, in like a self-striping Arne Carlos colourway, which I really like the colours. I really like how they're knitting up. It's got like a very long stripe repeat, which I quite like. And it feels quite abstract, so it was only like when I got to here that I realised it was repeating. I was like, how long is this repeat gonna be? But yeah, I think it's really pretty. I really like this kind of splash of pink in amongst all like the blues and teals and the bit of beige. So yeah, not the most exciting project, but I need to have something to work on at work, so that's my little work project, which lives in my little baggy bag. I absolutely love these bags, even though I probably should start putting needle stoppers on my needles, because they stab through, which isn't great, but I'll show it one second. I'm just wrestling the sock back in. The cable doesn't want to go back in the bag. Yes, I got a few of these, which I absolutely love. Perfect little knitting bags. So let me just have a quick look at my notes. I feel like I'm absolutely racing through what I've got to talk about, but that is probably not a bad thing, because I'm worried it's going to rain and it'll sound awful in here, and I'm meeting a friend for coffee in an hour, so I can't natter on forever. So yes, that is it for knitting works in progress, but as I teased in the intro, I, in a very out of character fashion, have started a sewing project. So I was given a sewing machine for my birthday over a year and a half ago now, and for various reasons I essentially have been too scared to try it out. I've done a couple of projects, one with a friend, we made bucket hats, it was really fun, but I felt like I needed a lot of hand holding. And then I also made a skirt as part of a fancy dress costume, but it was literally like a zero waste, like, I think I literally like folded the bit of fabric in half, seamed up one side, and then did like a folded over elasticated waistband. Like, it was so easy and simple and like very cheap quilting cotton, just for a costume. So I think with the sewing machine so what it is, I'm not summarising very well what I mean to say. I am a perfectionist. I find it quite hard to try new things, knowing that there's going to be a period of time when I'm quite bad at those things. And I've always found sewing, like when I have kind of dabbled in it, quite intimidating. I think I really take for granted how I've been knitting and crocheting for so long now that I understand the terminology, like I understand like concepts like gauge, and ease, and like choosing the right yarn for the project. And I think it's just so, I found it really intimidating, sort of like walking into the sewing world and being like, I don't even know how to properly cut fabric without it moving around and it not being straight. Like, I don't know like what fabrics are best suited to what projects. Like, I don't know what projects you would class as a beginner. And kind of for that reason, that's why it's taken me a year and a half to get it out and start doing anything properly. That, and also a house move, and the cats being quite curious, and that sort of being a little bit off-putting, and space. Anyway, all of this to say, I think before I even bought this, or no, I was bought the sewing machine. Before I was given the sewing machine, I bought some fabric and a pattern. So the pattern I bought was the Hattie dress from Merchant at Mills, or Hattie and Ellis, and I'm doing the Hattie. And I bought some double gauze fabric, also from Merchant at Mills. So I cut out all of my fabric yesterday. I'm trying to be kind to myself and not hone in on all the mistakes that I've already made. I think that's the thing with me in sewing, is that the way I'm going to learn is by making mistakes and unpicking, and probably having to kind of hash things together and having to be okay with that. So already, like yesterday was a prime example. I didn't lay out my pattern pieces in like the most fabric efficient way. So I've had to do some kind of like Frankenstein piecing on the front bodice, so that I hadn't like, because I didn't have enough fabric to like cut it out continuously. So I've had to like sew two bits together, which is fine. It's in like, it's the lining, so it's fine. But that's what I mean about being a perfectionist. Like, all my brain was thinking yesterday wasn't like, oh great, you've managed to cut out X number of pattern pieces successfully. It was that one piece that you ran out of fabric for. And then equally today, so I'll show you what I've done so far. This is honestly about 4 hours of work. And I still don't even really know if I've done it properly. So this is my fabric. It's a double gauze, and I'm using, like, this will be my right side, like the large check, but it does have a cute little mini check on the inside. And this is the front, these are the front and back facings. And then this is the little, I can't remember what they call it in the pattern, but like the little loop that I made and then pulled inside out, which is literally, I know it's really boring, a really boring detail, but I'm so proud of this little loop. So yep, the reason why this has taken me, I mean, this is literally like 2 seams. The reason why this has taken me so long today is because I had these pieces cut out and I seamed the shoulder seams and they just didn't line up. I mean, they already kind of don't line up. Like, why do I have that jog? Like, why is that wider? It's the same on the other side, and I've compared the pattern pieces and I just don't understand. Anyway, but they really weren't matching up. So I went back and looked at the paper pattern and realised that when I'd traced, so what I did was I have the paper pattern, but rather than cutting into the paper pattern, I bought like a kind of tracing paper type thing and traced my size. So I'm making the size 10. Trace my size, cut that out, and then cut that out from the fabric. So then the original paper pattern is preserved. Which that whole process was so tedious and boring and fiddly. It nearly made me like throw the towel in altogether. So anyway, I did that. But what I'd done is I'd like half cut out a size 10, but then I'd accidentally like followed the wrong line down, and so it was like part size 10, part size 16, and it just which is why I wasn't lining up. So I then had to cut out like 3 new pieces, because as well, and this is what I mean about me and sewing, I had my machine turned to a really short stitch, like so short that I could not use my stitch ripper to unpick the stitches. And I think as well, like, this is quite a delicate fabric. Like, I'm already seeing like it's fraying quite a lot on the edging, which is making me a bit nervous because I think there's only a 1 centimetre seam allowance just on the neck. Oh, so yeah, it was impossible to rip out. So I did this whole bit again. I mean, it didn't mean that I got to do this again, because that also couldn't be salvaged. So I enjoyed that. So yeah, that's what I've got so far. And I just feel like it's hard, but also kind of humbling, just having no clue what I'm doing. So I think this reminds me what it's like to be a beginner knitter, and I think, yeah, understanding that it is a process, and as much as it would be great to maybe do a class or to kind of have a friend close by to like hold my hand and do things, like maybe these are things that I just need to learn by myself. I just really hope I don't ruin an entire garment's worth of fabric in the process. I mean, there are other things as well that I'm realising. So I think the Hattie dress is okay. Like, it seems like it's great. It's marked as an intermediate pattern, but from looking at reviews online, it seems like I should be okay if I just take it step by step. However, I already think that like using a checked fabric was like a bad idea, because you can just see when things aren't straight really clearly, whereas if it was a plain fabric, you wouldn't have that. But hey, you live and you learn. You live and you learn. So that's currently in a complete mess next door, on the table. And that's the thing, sewing feels really messy as well, and like I don't really like that. I like things to be like contained. Like, I like with my knitting, like you've got your project and you've got one ball attached to it, and then you can just throw it in a bag at a minute's notice, whereas I've got the machine out, and then there's wires because it needs to be plugged in, and then there's threads everywhere and fabric scraps everywhere, and the cats are trying to jump on the fabric and the paper pieces. It just all feels like a totally different mindset, sewing versus knitting. However, like, I mean, I know obviously I've not got a garment yet, but already I can see how there's like the gratification is so much quicker with sewing, obviously. Like the fact that I've cut my fabric out and it's ready to go, and I just need to figure out how to seam it together, and that I could have a dress like potentially in a few days if I kind of work diligently on it, is very appealing, because like the thought of, I mean, knitting the equivalent would take months and months and months, even if I was really quick. So yeah, I don't know. I think it would be inaccurate to say, well, I am enjoying some aspects of it, but I think maybe I need to do it in like small chunks so I don't get frustrated. I was very close to getting frustrated this morning when I just couldn't figure out why the pattern pieces weren't lining up, and yeah, cut out the wrong shape piece, so that's fine. If you heard that, that was Phoebe agreeing with me and stretching on her cushion. You gonna come say hi? No, she's too comfy. Right, well, I think I only have one more thing to talk about, and it's not a work in progress because it's not cast on yet, but I have swatched. So here it is. Before I start rambling, so I have swatched for a summer top. I don't usually knit summer tops. I've never successfully finished one, and I feel like every year, around about this time of year, I get the sudden urge to cast one on, and yeah, it either never gets finished or it never even gets cast on, and I question whether I would really wear it anyway. However, I think I talked about this in my episode last time, but me and my friend Catherine are going to Barcelona Knits in November, and what we've done before when we've got plans to go to a knitting festival together is we've kind of not necessarily done a knit along. I mean, sometimes I guess it feels a bit like that we kind of encourage each other on with our progress and things, but often we pick a pattern and both knit it and then like wear it to the festival together, which is super nerdy, I know, but that's just who we are. So we created a shared board on Instagram, which I didn't even know that you could do, of kind of potential summer knits, because we're thinking it will still be quite mild in Barcelona, even in November. And we were thinking maybe we could knit something which could then be layered over a t-shirt to make it a bit more versatile, and it felt like it would kind of scratch the itch of making a summer knit that would maybe get worn not just on warm summer days, because it's, even though I am sat currently in a vest, it's really not very often that I would be sat with bare arms. I'm almost always in a jumper. So what we ended up landing on was the Rota Sleeveless top by Irene Lin, and I'll put a picture up somewhere. So it's this really nice vest with a kind of 2x2 rib eyelet lace detail. We both thought it would look really cool layered over t-shirts. I bought yarn and I'm going to do mine in Mungo by Retrosaria Rosa Pomar in this like funky, I guess from like far away it looks kind of beigey, but then up close it's like quite multi-dimensional colour. It's got greys, beige, white, and this is, I think it's 50-50 recycled cotton and wool, so it feels nice and dry, but it's light, and I figured it would be, yeah, nice and cool. So I've swatched, and for anyone who's like watched my videos before, anyone who maybe like follows me on Instagram, you will know that I am cursed with a really tight row gauge. I knit I knit on the tighter side anyway, which I always mitigate with just going up a needle size. Fine. Here's Phoebe. You want to say hi, Phoebe? Hello. She's very warm. She's been, yeah, just sat on her cushion this whole time. Yes, so it's like, it's easy enough to rectify stitch gauge. However, row gauge I find is a little bit more tricky to fix. Particularly as I don't like have a visible like rowing out problem. I used to think that maybe it was my knit stitches were really tight on the knit row if I was kind of doing stocking stitch back and forth, but I can't really tell which is the knits and which is the purls. So yeah, all of this to say is that I've swatched and I'm pretty much bang on for my stitch count, but my row gauge is wildly out. Literally, I think the pattern is, don't quote me on this because I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I think the pattern is maybe 24 rows and I'm getting 32 to 10 centimetres. So, I mean, but I don't know what the solution is to that, because my stitch gauge is fine and I quite like how the fabric feels. I guess it will just mean I'll have to do more repeats, but it just makes me a bit worried. I bought only just enough yarn for the size I want to make, so am I going to run out? Who knows? I have not cast this on yet because, yeah, like I said, me and my friend are wanting to do it as a knit along. She's got a few things that she needs to clean off kind of clear off the needles first before she gets started, and I was a bit worried that if I cast on now, then I would just be finished before maybe she's even started, which kind of defeats the point of initial on. But yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about starting. I've not worked with this yarn before. I love all of the kind of Retrosaria yarns that I've tried, and I think this one will be no exception. It feels like it's really tactile. I just really like how dry it feels, which, yeah, I don't know if that's a weird way of describing a yarn, but it's, yes, very dry. So yeah, I'm excited about starting that. So yeah, a bit of a shorter episode today, but that's probably because there's not been as much time in between recording. But thank you for tuning in again. And feel free to leave me a comment telling me what you're working on. As I said earlier, I would love to hear any blanket recommendations. I actually saw that Brooklyn Tweed are releasing a new blanket book, like selection of patterns. I think the pre-order, I feel like I got an email about a pre-order a few days ago, and there were some nice ones in there that kind of looked like they were worked continuously. But yes, feel free to drop a pattern suggestion down below. And until next time, happy making, happy knitting, happy sewing, and yeah, chat to you again soon. Bye.